The Barbie movie has long been the topic of speculation as to what it was going to be about since it was announced. It was widely marketed as a different, fresh take on one of the most iconic and recognizable characters in our culture. The director, Greta Gerwig, is in my opinion one of the most talented filmmakers in Hollywood today, so I knew that the film was going to be something special. If you want to hear my thoughts on the movie itself, check out my review that I published yesterday. But what I want to focus on this video is the underlying themes in the Barbie movie, because even if on the surface it might seem like a fun, lighthearted adventure that pays a homage to the character, it contains a lot of messages that will really make the audience think. The film touches upon many different topics, containing material for several different videos, such as politics, consumerism, feminism, nostalgia, and is even a self-aware satire on the effects that the Barbie doll has had on our world. In fact, I think that the movie could be considered a satire on itself. However, I'm going to touch primarily on the topic of existentialism, something that is heavily featured on the movie. One of the main themes in Barbie is that of meaning and purpose, which is shown through our main character's journey, and what I'm going to touch upon today. Also, this video will contain heavy spoilers, so be warned if you haven't seen the Barbie movie. To make a brief summary about the film's plot, at the beginning of Barbie, we are introduced to Barbie Land, which seems like the perfect world on the surface level. It is a beautiful utopia, where Barbies have all sort of important occupations. One day, our protagonist, which is a stereotypical Barbie played by Margot Robbie, becomes affected by an existential crisis that was previously unknown in this world. Because all Barbies live in a perpetual utopia where every one of their needs is taken care of, thus almost entirely eliminating the concept of suffering. Other aspects to note about Barbie Land are the amount of things that are clearly fake, from the houses to the way Barbies pretend to eat food, because they seemingly lack the ability to eat. This echoes the way children play with their Barbie dolls, but I think that there is a deeper meaning. It also seems like every character in this world is perfectly safe from danger. It is unclear how long the Barbies and Kens have lived in this state, and even if there are signs of conflict, such as the rivalry between Simu Liu and Ryan Gosling's Kens, they repeat each day living in a perfect bubble. That is, until the main conflict of the film, where our main Barbie ponders the concept of mortality.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
It is important to remember this line because it is the most crucial for the topic of this video. The moment that Barbie begins to explore human emotions that are an integral part of the real world we live in. Jean Baudrillard was a French philosopher who wrote about the topic in his book Simulacra and Simulation. Here, he explains how industrial society has essentially transformed our reality into a series of symbols and ideas that represent what originally was there. In other words, we live in a reflection of reality, a simulation of what was an original idea. This is shown through hyper-consumerism and the way ideas are distorted over time by things like ads. He also writes about the effect this has on our individual and collective psyches. In the book, he uses the example of Disneyland to illustrate this point. He talks about how the characters, the experiences, the place, the buildings inside Disneyland are merely a reflection of reality in itself, a simulacra of the reality. He talks about how there are different levels of these realities that are merely a simulation or a representation of those core ideas. This could be related to the idea of childhood perfection, where as children we are protected from the horrors and the danger of the real world by our parents, and thus everything has a facade of perfection and safety that we are unaware of, that is until we grow up and face the reality and the challenges of the world. In my personal point of view, it is important to take this idea of the reality versus the simulation as apart from the value each world has. It should be viewed independently as two different points in philosophy that should have their own debates. For example, in his new book Reality Plus, the philosopher David Chalmers argues that a life entirely lived in a virtual reality environment can be as valuable as a life lived in the physical reality. This is a very strong thesis, and this idea is explored in films such as The Matrix or The Truman Show. For example, in the latter, Truman's family and friends live entirely simulated lives that differ from their quote real lives. However, are their interactions with Truman any less valuable as if they were not part of a TV cast? This is a fascinating topic for me, and I would love to discuss this idea in another video. With Baudrillard's idea, we see how Disneyland is not so different from Barbie Land, or the consumerism of our real world, where every experience is perfect and the positives are exaggerated, whether it is by corporations to sell us more stuff or to maintain the perfect idealism of Barbie Land. The rest of the movie follows Barbie and Ken as they go on a quest through the real world, in search of the girl who is playing with our protagonist Barbie, as she holds the key to restoring her back to normal. This leads to several interesting storylines, such as the movie's take on gender stereotypes and the patriarchy through Ken's journey. However, I want to focus more on Barbie's character development from the moment she arrives in the real world. And this is through the concept of creating our own meaning and purpose in the face of indifference of the universe and the abundance of freedom we have to create our own meanings. Skipping ahead to the end of the movie, and after Barbie's development over the course of the film, we see how her worldview is shattered several times, and this leads her to make a very difficult decision, that is, staying in the real world with the family she meets, and that has very important implications for the following reasons. In Barbie Land, it is not clear how the Barbie and Ken society even began, as there is a lot of allusion to it being a metaphorical plane for ideas rather than a tangible place. This This world has a lot of fantasy elements and magical realism to it, so I'll make a couple of assumptions about Barbie's existence pre-real world. We know that they have no need to eat. In Barbie Land, the Barbies and Kens are essentially free to enjoy their lives mostly carefree, with all of the core necessities of humanity such as food, shelter, and even sexuality being taken care of. As it seems like the Barbies and Kens are even oblivious to the concept of sex, and it is confirmed that they don't even have genitals.
No, I won't let you do just one appendectomy.
But I'm a man.
Also, each Barbie has their own purpose and role in their society predetermined from their very creation. For example, the way they use real toys designed by Mattel to illustrate this point. If they decided you would become a Dr. Barbie, you became the Dr. Barbie. Or a lawyer, astronaut, the stereotypical Barbie, you get the point. The same way, the Kens have their existence predetermined by the system, where they simply exist only in reference to the Barbies, something that becomes the base for the main Ken's own existential problems.
I just don't know who I am without you.
You're Ken.
But it's Barbie and Ken. There is no just Ken.
There seems to be no real sign of struggle in Barbie Land, something that becomes shattered when Barbie and Ken visit the real world and bring with them their anxieties, complexities, and all the feelings that entail the human existence. One of my favorite lines in the movie comes after Barbie gets insulted by Sasha, who is the girl she thinks will solve her problems. She says that she can't handle the complex human emotions such as anger and sadness, and that is why she wishes to return to the Barbie world where everything was normal and she lived the life that she lived before. We'll see how existentialism ties into this, and the way Barbie's entire worldview is shattered has a lot of parallels how humans deal with the situation, and the way human society and values have changed over time from the last couple centuries, culminating in our modern, industrial, and capitalistic society. Barbie's problems can be best explained through the philosophy of existentialists such as Albert Camus, Soren Kierkegaard, and Jean-Paul Sartre. The idea of existentialism ties a lot with the idea of humanism, where we are responsible for our own meaning and actions, instead of obtaining it from an external source, such as religion or loyalties to a country, a monarchy, or an authoritarian government. It is important to note that we can derive meaning from these sources, but the idea behind existentialism is that that is only available if you choose to, so you can choose basically anything and nothing is predetermined in a general sense over humanity. The main problem that existentialists describe is shown when Barbie goes through her period of depression. She becomes overloaded with an existential and powerful weight that is common when people change their ideas. For example, through major changes of one's own worldview or religion, the death of a close loved one, a crisis in what one's vocation should be, or the way we handle the anxiety and abundance of freedom that I mentioned earlier, exemplified by Barbie's line once she begins having existential feelings. A question existentialist philosophers aim to answer is, how does one find meaning in a world where we know our lives will eventually come to an end? In my opinion, this freedom is preferable to the alternative of the old world, where meaning was predetermined by external forces, as it shows the values of truth over superstition, freedom versus predetermination, and self-empowerment over the will of an external force. And it kind of echoes Barbie's slogan, be who you want to be. In the end, you can become anything you want with the pain and uncertainty it comes with. At the end of the movie, we see one of the most important scenes in the film, when Barbie has a conversation with Ruth Handler, who is the original creator of the doll in the real world. In this scene, Ruth explains to her that she is free to determine the course she wants to take. Barbie has a lot of trouble throughout the movie understanding her true role in the world, coming from a bubble of seeming perfection. A related topic is that this Barbie in itself is a representation of what could be considered the ideal beauty standard for women. This is a topic that has gathered the brand a lot of controversy over the decades, and I feel that the way the movie took this point was very well done. Being an ideal of perfection comes with responsibilities, and I have a feeling that this is a factor in Barbie's crisis. Barbie's final decision in the movie is to stay in the real world with Sasha and Gloria, the humans she encounters in her adventure. To me, this choice marks an act of absolute bravery, as Barbie leaves behind our perfect world in order to become part of reality. This reminds me of an important topic in philosophy, which is Plato's allegory of the cave. The allegory of the cave is a thought experiment that imagines a group of people that have been chained in a cave for years. They have lived their entire lives this way, and the only thing they see is a wall illuminated by a fire. In this wall, they see the shadows of people, animals, and things that pass through outside the cave. They only see the reflections of the shadows of these people, not the people in themselves. So all they see is a distorted part of reality that is all they experience and all they know. But one day, one of the people in the cave breaks free from his shackles and escapes into the real world. Amazed by the reality he previously didn't know, he rushes back into the cave to tell the other people about it. But no matter how hard he explains it, they can't know anything about it, what he is saying, because all they know is the things they see in the cave. In our case, our main Barbie takes the role of the person who escapes the cave. When exposed to her newfound knowledge of the external world, she is unable to return to her previous state of ignorance. This can be difficult for many people, but it is an important part of the human experience. As we grow up and learn, we come to understand that many new things that shatter our view lead us to different paths. This is something that I noticed in Ken's character, who reminds me of how many adolescents go through rebellious and politically radical phases once they learn about new concepts and feel a strong urge to change things. But in the end, we have to overcome those feelings of existential frustration and face the world head on while building our knowledge about it. This to me is one of the main ideas that encapsulates the Barbie movie. Like I said before, the movie touches upon a lot of really important topics such as politics and sociology, something that are best suited for another video, but I gotta say that I really like the movie and I think it really has opened a lot of conversations in our culture and society. But anyways, those are most of my thoughts on the movie in itself. If you learned something today, please watch my other videos and let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments. I know it's a really heavy topic, that of existentialism, of meaning, but I would love to see what my viewers like about the topic, about the videos, suggestions for future videos, because I love analyzing films for philosophy. And I guess that's pretty much it. So once again, if you liked the video, if you watched it, thank you very much. And yeah, that's pretty much everything for today. So see you guys on the next time and have an amazing day.